So I think I want to start with Uvalde tonight, and then we'll talk a little bit about Uvalde and get into missing persons. So the headline says that Arredondo's schedule shows that Abbott's. I'm sorry, I got Arredondo on the brain because I'm so ready for him to just be fired. Abbott's schedule shows he hasn't attended funerals of Uvalde victims, according to reports. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, that's who you see in this picture right here. Texas Governor Greg Abbott's schedule shows he did not attend the funerals of victims of the mass shooting that occurred in Uvalde, Texas, according to documents obtained by a local ABC news station. Abbott has not been to Uvalde since June 5th, according to his schedule, when he met with Uvalde District Attorney Christina Busby and attended a worship event. The schedule, made public through a records request by the local ABC News affiliate, spans from May 25th to June 15th and includes 3 other visits to Uvalde. Family members of the victims of the Uvalde shooting, which killed 19 children and 2 teachers, have criticized Abbott and other Texas lawmakers for their absence in communicating with them. For everybody out there getting ready to vote, since this has happened, Governor Greg Abbott has yet to reach out, said Angel Garza, the father of 10-year-old shooting victim Amaray Joe Garza. These guys don't have compassion for us. They don't care, he added. Abbott said at a press conference on Thursday that he plans to return to Uvalde many more times, especially to supervise the work on a mental health facility being built there. I've been there multiple times to Uvalde for multiple purposes, he said. Sometimes for public presentations, sometimes for grieving events, and different things like that. And I will be going many more times. A spokeswoman for Abbott told the Houston Chronicle that the governor had visited every family who requested a meeting. Many families requested private funerals, and the governor and first lady instead sent flowers and condolences to let the loved ones know they remain in their prayers, said the spokesman. Representatives for Senator Ted Cruz told the TV network that the senator had planned to speak to some of the victims' families, but that a meeting had been canceled. Garza had praised, however, for Democratic gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke. Wow, he's still a thing. And State Senator Ronald Gutierrez, a Democrat who represents a district that includes Uvalde. This isn't some little plot or anything, said Garza. This is real life. This is hurting all of us. We are not living a normal life right now. Abbott held a press conference in Uvalde on May 25th, a day after the shooting, and a second on May 27th. Abbott on May 29th also met President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden in Uvalde, where they met with Busby and a group of first responders. I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, he's only one person, so it's not possible that he could attend all of the funerals. I would have expected him to at least attend one of them, just as a show of support, sympathy, and empathy, compassion toward the victims' surviving families. However, if the time was taken to make sure that flowers and condolences were sent, I think maybe some concessions should be made for the fact that he wasn't physically there. I mean, he is the governor. But yeah, I think he should have gone to at least one of the funerals. And even the private funerals, I think the families would have been willing to have him there, being that he's the governor. So I don't even really know what to say about that other than it's in the headlines. So now we get to talk about Pete Arredondo. Because Arredondo is an issue. Now, according to the headline, right, Uvalde superintendent recommends School Police Chief Pete Arredondo be fired. Let me see something real quick and make sure I got sound in here. Because it seems like, yeah, I got sound, I think. Testing the microphone. Yep, I got sound. Okay. Uvalde Superintendent recommends School Police Chief Pete Arredondo be fired. The Uvalde, Texas School Superintendent has recommended the firing of Pete Arredondo, the school police chief who oversaw the response to May's mass shooting at Robb Elementary School, according to a Board of Education meeting agenda. The board announced Wednesday it will hold a special meeting Saturday at 10 a.m. for discussion and possible actions regarding termination for good cause and recommended by the superintendent, said the agenda says. The meeting announcement came a day after district officials informed Arredondo that the school board intends to meet Saturday to discuss his fate, according to a source close to the discussions. The source told CNN the board is expected to vote to terminate Arredondo, who was placed on administrative leave last month. CNN has reached out to Arredondo's attorney and has not received a response. Arredondo, who has been the school district police chief since March 2020, was one of the nearly 400 law enforcement officers who responded to the shooting in which a gunman entered adjoining classrooms inside the Texas school on May 24th. Officers began arriving at the school within minutes, but allowed the gunman to remain in the classroom for 77 minutes until they entered and killed him, according to a timeline from the Texas Department of Public Safety. By the time police forced their way inside, 19 children and 2 teachers were dead. The lengthy delay contradicted widely taught protocol for active shooter situations that call for police to immediately stop the threat and came even as children inside repeatedly called 911 and begged for help. In a hearing before the Texas Senate last month, DPS Director Colonel Stephen McCraw called the police response an abject failure. He placed some blame for the failure on Arredondo, who officials have identified as the on-scene commander, saying he, quote, decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children, unquote. But Arredondo, you know what, I'm going to have to disagree with that because he didn't make that decision. They all made that decision. He was not the only one running. Every time gunshots burst out, everybody in the hallway took off in the opposite direction. So I'm going to put that blame on everybody's shoulders that was there. But Arredondo did not consider himself incident commander, according to a Texas House Investigative Committee's preliminary report. My approach and thought was responding as a police officer, and so I didn't title myself, Arredondo said in the investigative report. The report instead placed blame more broadly, saying the entirety of law enforcement and its training, preparation, and response shares systemic responsibility for many of the missed opportunities. It also noted others could have assumed command. And that's one reason that I don't put all the blame directly on him. I put most of it on him simply because he was indeed the commanding officer, even though he didn't seem to think he was. Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, quote, teaches that any law enforcement officer can assume command, that somebody must assume command, and that an incident commander can transfer responsibility as an incident develops, the report said. That did not happen at Robb Elementary, and the lack of effective incident command is a major factor in that caused other vital measures to be left undone. In the wake of sharp criticism, Uvalde School District Superintendent Hal Harrell placed Arredondo on leave from his position as school police chief on June 22nd. Because of the lack of clarity that remains and the unknown timing of when I will receive the results of the investigation, I have made the decision to place Chief Arredondo on administrative leave, effective on this date, Harrell wrote in an announcement. Arredondo, who has worked in law enforcement for nearly 30 years, has spoken substantively to the public about his decision-making the day of the massacre, but he told the Texas Tribune and the House Committee he did not consider himself the on-scene commander. However, At least one of the responding officers expressed the belief that Arredondo was leading the law enforcement response inside the school, telling others the chief is in charge, according to the DPS timeline. How does the chief not think he's in charge? Like, how does the boss not think he owns the company? Arredondo, that's like Bill Gates saying, I didn't know I was in charge of Microsoft. I mean, be serious now. Arredondo also told the Tribune he did not instruct officers to refrain from breaching the classrooms. I don't know if that was Arredondo that I saw in the video because I can't recall it off the top of my head, but there was one point when officers in the hallway were trying to advance, and there was a man standing in the middle of the hallway who raised his hands and kind of like pushed them back, like, no, don't go. I don't know who that was. We might have to watch the video again. Separately, Arredondo resigned his position on the Uvalde City Council in early July, according to a resignation letter he sent to the city. After much consideration, it is in the best interest of the community to step down as a member of the City Council for District 3 to minimize further distractions, Arredondo said in the letter. The mayor, the city council, and the city staff must continue to move forward to unite our community once again. I kind of feel like they should have at least put him on administrative leave sooner than what they did. There's just no way if you're the boss, you don't know you're the boss. You're the chief. Everybody knows that the chief is the head of the police department. So if you're not in command, who is? Especially since when they first got there, there was only Uvalde police there. When they first got there, at the time that he got there, there was no Bortak there. There was no U.S. Marshals and whoever else. It was just him and his crew. So how did he not think that he was in charge of his crew? So it really just doesn't even make sense to me. I mean, a bunch of CYA going on, but that's just. I want to talk a little bit about the killer, okay? Because apparently his family has started to come out and say things and talk to the media and kind of try to. Oh my goodness! Hold on a second. And kind of trying to like defend him or stand up for him in some way. So I have two articles that I want to read about that. And then there's another article about how he was basically dropping hints for a long time that people should have picked up on. And it seems that people apparently did pick up on these hints and these clues and think something of it, but nothing was done. You know, I guess maybe it was like breadcrumbs and nobody really found enough to put together a whole slice. So you got one person over here with a chunk, one person over there with a chunk, but somehow these chunks never got put together to make a whole slice and be like, oh, this is bread, you know? So in this one, it says the Uvalde killer, quote, broke down, didn't want to live anymore, is what his family told cops. I'm going to reload this page so that we can watch the video. Hey, Sleuthy, how you doing? I'm on here just hanging out, talking about stuff and things and some more stuff. And then after I finish talking about things and stuff, then I'm going to talk about some missing people. Oh, come on, page, load up. Okay, so let's see what this is about.
He did not want to live anymore and broke down days before the killing that left 19 children and 2 adult teachers dead.
This is all according to a family member who is captured on police body camera video released this week. KXAN investigator Matt Grant has more on the new revelations and the red flags that were ignored.
An hour after law enforcement killed the Uvalde gunman, police secure and search the home where he lived with and shot his grandmother, going room to room looking for evidence. Outside, you can hear a conversation between another officer and a woman who identifies herself as a relative of the gunman. While difficult to hear, the woman says she knew who was responsible as soon as she heard what happened, saying days before he broke down and told family
That's crazy.
he didn't want to live anymore.
Mine just last week, and you broke down. You didn't want to
Live anymore.
Mine just last week, and you broke.
She heard what happened, saying days before he broke down and told family he didn't want to live anymore.
Mine just last week, and you broke down. You didn't want to live anymore. He said he was crying to me outside. He didn't want to live anymore.
In the video, the woman appears not to know the gunman is dead.
I just wanted to I didn't know where he's at. Nobody wants to tell me where he's from.
The Texas House Investigative Committee report into the shooting noted he was suicidal, detailing that between the gunman's 18th birthday on May 16th and the attack on the 24th, he expressed suicidal ideation to a cousin who talked to him and did not believe he was an imminent suicide risk. Prior to turning 18, he asked family to illegally buy guns for him. They refused. At the same time, he told family members about his suicidal thoughts. He legally bought 2 AR-15 style rifles, 60 magazines, and over 2,000 rounds of ammunition. When his grandparents and other family found out, the report states they demanded that the guns be removed from the home. None of this and other red flags were reported.
This is killing me that so many people in his family, right? His cousin, his aunt says she knew as soon as she heard it that it was him. The cousin is saying that he was telling him that he was suicidal, but for some reason the cousin didn't really take it seriously. Considering the fact that his schoolmates actually called him the school shooter and constantly referred to school shootings in context with him, says that this kid was crying out for a long time and not saying this doesn't justify anything that he did, right? What he did was dead wrong. In the same way that he took the initiative to run up in that school and shoot at those kids, he could have took the initiative to run over to the local mental health facility and check himself in. You know what I'm saying? If he was trying to get attention and get help, then there were other ways that he could have drew attention to himself. He could have just waved the gun around and somebody would have came and took care of that problem real quick. So it's no excuse for what he did, but apparently this boy was crying out for a while and everybody is just falling on deaf ears.
To law enforcement or the state suspicious activity reporting system known as iWatch. In the wake of the killing, Governor Abbott has called for the program, which tracks threats, to be expanded. Matt Grant, KXAN Investigates.
Looking in depth, according to the nonprofit research center, The Violence Project, which is funded by the Department of Justice, of 180 mass shooters profiled since 1966, more than 70 intended to die, but they were not previously suicidal. Nearly 60 were suicidal before the shooting. 50 were not suicidal.
So this kid needing help. Oh, you got 16 points. That's the first time I've seen anybody get more than a point. This kid had demonstrable mental health issues that were on
Uvalde
display
Consolidated Special School.
and that people could see, and nobody took it seriously. We really have to start taking mental health seriously. We really have to start taking mental health seriously. Because when we don't, things like this happen. We really have to stop shunning people with mental health issues and stigmatizing it, because when we do that, then the person with the issue doesn't want to go get help because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be looked down on. They don't want to be looked at as something other. Who does? It seems to me like this whole shooting could have been just avoided completely if any one person had just stepped up with the information that they had and done something about it. But then again, some people might not know the things that they have the power to do in a situation like that. So a clear thought that I just had is I think I'm going to do a video on like Baker's Acts and Marshment laws and stuff like that people can use to get help for especially like people who are too old for you to forcefully commit, like people who could opt out of it. There are other means to force them into mental health care, such as the Baker Act, which we all know is where if someone is displaying certain mental health symptoms or saying certain things, then some official can involuntarily commit them, like a police officer or fireman or whatever. But there also is a thing called the Marchment Act. And with the Marchment Act or Marchment petition, a family member, a friend, anyone can go and request the courts to commit someone. So I'm going to do a little bit of research on that, and I'm going to make sure that within the next 7 days, I get some information posted about Baker's Act and Marchment Acts. So apparently, his mother is stepping up and says, "You have no right to judge my son." So let's see what mom is talking about. I might have to refresh this page. Like I switched over to the Opera browser, and I love the Opera browser because it moves a whole lot faster. It's got automatic like VPN, it's got built-in VPN, it's got automatic built-in ad blocking, but then some of the things about it I haven't learned how to tweak, like it puts tabs to sleep if you're not on them. So I can't just like switch over to a tab. Let's see. Sleuthy says, I almost was talking smack to Bautissimo because I thought I wasn't getting. You're always selling out to Bautissimo about that dime. Bautissimo, be on alert. You need to throw a dime at Sleuth Mom every time she comes in, every single time. Okay, now let's see if it'll play for us. Might have to come back to this one. Seems like it doesn't want to. Play.
New
There
video captures family members of Amerie Jo Garza, a student killed in the Uvalde school shooting, confronting the gunman's mother and demanding an explanation from her.
I'm sorry. You have no right to judge my son. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. May God forgive y'all. I know my son was a coward. You don't think I don't know that? I know. You don't think I'm carrying all that with me? You don't think I don't know? I know. And I'm sorry.
Wow, CNN is reaching out to the mother for comment.
Wow. That was short but intense. Like, I understand their frustration, but at the same time, his mom had no control over his actions. Even if he had been living in the home with her, there's nothing she could have done about it. Because if we are to believe the scenario that was presented to us in the Sandy Hook shooting, that boy lived in the house with his mom, who was or wasn't a teacher at Sandy Hook. He had access to guns and stuff. He was right there in the house. He saw her the morning that he shot the school up. So we can't really, in some cases, we can't really blame the parents for what the child does. Now the Crumbly parents, that's a whole different story. They knew that kid was going through something. They're telling him crap like basically suck it up and deal with it. They're buying him a gun, even though he's doing this crazy talk. They're refusing to get him help even after being called to the school and shown these drawings and stuff that he made, these threatening drawings. So in that case, I feel like a case like that, I feel like the parents should bear responsibility, criminal liability in those cases, because the parent had obvious and undeniable evidence in front of them that their child was a threat, that their child needed help, that it was a possibility like something like that could happen. But in a case where your kid goes and does something, one, the kid doesn't even live in the house with her. He lives with his grandmother. So she probably wasn't in daily contact with him to see or to be well aware of exactly what was going on, his different moods, his different actions, and different things that he would say throughout the day. So she didn't have that much. She may or may not have been told by the cousin that he was talking about suicide. She may or may not have been aware of the things about him being known as the school shooter or other things. We don't know what she knew and what she didn't. But and I'm not defending her and I'm not standing for her either. I'm just looking at the facts as they're present. And I mean, she's like, I'm sorry. I know he was a coward. You don't have a right to judge him though. And in a way, she's right because they weren't in her shoes, but at the same time, yeah, they got a right to judge because we can all see what he did. We can all look and see what he did. So I don't know. That could go either way. That was intense though. All right. Last one about the school shooter. Yes. Exactly. No one knows what's inside people's head. We don't know what he was dealing with, what he was going through. We don't know if he had serious mental health issues, and those mental health issues are what caused him to do what he did, if he was schizophrenic and it was the voices. I mean, it's really hard to call. We all know that what he did was just dead wrong. And I can sit here all day and say he could have done this, he shouldn't have done that. And at the same time, I could come from the other side of the fence and say, well, you don't know what was going on with him. Maybe he couldn't handle it. He didn't have resources, so it could be argued either way. All we know for a fact right now is he went into a school. He killed 19 children, 2 teachers, and I'm going to include the teacher's husband who died of a broken heart. So he took 23 lives that day. And there is no justification for that. Okay, Texas school shooter left a trail of ominous warning signs, and this is where we get to the heart of it, because I feel like if all this stuff was out there, then somebody should have had sense enough to reach out somewhere and get some help. Call the cops, call whoever it is that you thought you might need to call. Talk to the school counselor or the school nurse. Talk to your parent at home. The kids at school who were calling him the school shooter. Maybe they should have talked to their parents about it. Not blaming them either, but just saying that all this evidence seems to have been out there that there was something really mentally wrong with this dude, and that he was capable of or likely to do something really stupid like what he did, and just nobody even paid it attention. Okay, the Uvalde, Texas gunman gave off so many warning signs that he was obsessed with violence and notoriety in the months leading up to the attack that teens who knew him began calling him school shooter. He was once bullied as a 4th grader in one of the same classrooms where he killed 19 children and 2 teachers. And in the planning for the May 24th massacre, he collected articles about the Buffalo, New York supermarket shooting and played video games with a young student while quizzing him about the school schedule. Ding, 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 ding. Of course, now that elementary school kid, I'm sure was not aware of what the high school kids were calling him school shooter. I'm sure he didn't sit there talking to this little elementary school kid about how he wants to kill himself. So as far as this kid went, because when I was a kid, if people were asking me about school, I didn't think anything bad about it. Well, when do you go out to PE? How do you like PE? Who's your teacher for art? You know what I'm saying? I'm just a little kid answering questions. So I don't put any responsibility on this kid at all. A state investigative report that highlighted law enforcement's bungled response to the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School has also provided the most in-depth account to date about missed red flags and possible motivations surrounding 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. Despite many warning signs, he still managed to legally amass more than $5,000 in guns, ammunition, and gear in the weeks leading up to the killings. I want to know where he got $5,000 to throw away because I need some. That's what I want to know. Just days before the attack, Ramos spoke out on social media of his plans to do something that would, quote, put him all over the news, unquote. He wrote of a desire to kill himself, shared online videos of beheadings and violent sex, and sent footage of himself driving around with, quote, someone he met on the internet, unquote, holding a plastic bag containing a dead cat and pointing BB guns at people out of the window. Okay. Just days before the attack, Ramos spoke out on social media of his plans to do something that would put him all over the news. He wrote of a desire to kill himself, so plenty of people saw this. He was posting this on social media. Shared online videos of beheadings and violent sex, and sent footage of himself driving around with someone he met on the internet, holding a plastic bag containing a dead cat and pointing BB guns at people out the window. So this was all there on display for the world to see. They've probably taken down his Facebook profile by now if he had one. I'm sure that if we could go through there, those videos and stuff were probably on public. Anyone probably could have seen them. The attacker became focused on achieving notoriety, according to the interim report released Sunday by an investigative panel of the Texas House of Representatives. He believed his TikTok and YouTube channels would be successful. The small number of views he received led him to tell those with whom he interacted that he was famous, that they were mere randoms by comparison. So he really has some delusional ideation going on. That's the part that I don't get either. If you're suicidal, why are you by necessity homicidal? I mean, it just doesn't. And I say it doesn't add up to me because, just being honest, there have been times in my life where I've been extremely suicidal, and the thought never occurred to me to take somebody with me. My focus was on, thank you so much for posting that, Sleuth Mom. I saw that news article about the 988 phone number just the day before yesterday. If you don't mind, could you please also post a suicide crisis hotline for me? But he obviously had some kind of delusions going on, and I mean, it sounded like he had things going on that you didn't have to be a professional to recognize as something's wrong. All you had to do was be a person, just a regular old person, and know that that's not right. People don't do that. People don't talk like that. People don't act like that. People don't have these aspirations. Normal people don't post beheadings and violent sex on their social media pages. Especially if this is stuff that wasn't going on before and was suddenly noticeable over like a relatively short period of time. Okay, the 77-page report, based on interviews with family members, testimony, and data from Ramos's phone, lays out a long trail of missed signals prior to the massacre, but notes these clues were known only to private individuals. Thank you, Sleuth Mom. That is definitely easier to remember than some 800 number. And not reported to authorities. It also found Ramos had no known ideological or political views that would have made his rantings more widely known. The report traces the descent of a shy, quiet boy once thought by a teacher as a wonderful student with a positive attitude into a mass murderer who gave plenty of signs online and to family members that he was prone to violence as he amassed an arsenal of rifles, body armor, and ammunition. A former girlfriend told the FBI that she believed Ramos had been sexually assaulted by one of his mother's boyfriends at an early age, and the report said, but when Ramos told his mother at the time, she didn't believe him. I'll stop right there to say this. Believe the child. I know they always say believe the victim. When it comes to adults, I can fall on either side of that fence. I mean, with adults, I say you have to believe the facts. With children, believe the child, because children don't just make up sexual abuse. I mean, if you think about it, think about this. When you were that age, were you able to describe engaging in a sexual act? The only way you could describe that is if you had experienced that. I cannot tell you what it's like to orbit the Earth. I've never been on the International Space Station. I couldn't describe that to you. I could tell you what I've heard or what I think. Only someone who's been there could tell you it feels like this. And it's weightlessness, but not really weightlessness because it's this. It feels weird when you do certain things. Only a person with experience can describe an experience to you. So believe the child. Finally, family members told investigators how Ramos had been bullied as a fourth grader in one of the same linked classrooms where he carried out the attack. They said he faced ridicule over his stutter, short hair, and for wearing the same clothing nearly every day. At one point, the report said a fellow student tied his shoelaces together and Ramos fell on his face, injuring himself. The report noted that Ramos was flagged by school officials as at risk, but never received any special education services. I have issues with that statement, even though it was very short, because if the kids noticed that he was wearing the same clothes nearly every day to the point that they could pick on him, then the adults should have noticed it as well and been aware that something was wrong, because most kids don't wear the same clothes to school every single day. There was obviously a need there that needed to be filled. So it looks like, and again, not defending him, not standing up for him, but it looks like opportunities have been being missed and this kid has been being failed since a very young age. And again, I'm going to say this. Personally, I was bullied in school. I remember them dragging my winter coat through the red clay on the track. I remember being called names. I remember people pulling my hair. But never have I thought of killing or hurting them. So, but everybody deals with things differently. The things that affected me very deeply that are still with me today from my childhood are probably completely different than the things that affect someone else and stay with them throughout their adult life from their childhood. Things that affect me might not necessarily affect you that way. You might think nothing of it. So we have to really be careful about when our kids are coming to us and saying they're being bullied or saying people are being mean to them. We have to really pay attention. And I'm not necessarily saying believe every child is against your child and you need to go to the school to raise Cain and knock heads, because it's not always the case. But if your child is being bullied, but see, honestly, it seems like he didn't even have anybody there to care if he was being bullied anyway. So what I'm saying is really a waste of breath. Failing grades soon were accompanied by frequent absences, more than 100 a year beginning in 2018. Now, this is where the system should have had mechanisms and protocols in place that would have had to go out and get some accountability for someone from him not being in school so much. Because I know where I'm from, if your kid misses school a whole lot, you could actually be in danger of criminal prosecution. It's not just CPS or civil or whatever. You could actually get jail time for your kid missing that much school, and they do pay attention to it. They will call you in a minute. Hey, your kid ain't been here in 5 days. What's up? The report noted it was unclear if a school resource officer ever visited Ramos' home. So they don't even have documentation on whether or not they went out to see about the kid. Uvalde High School officials voluntarily withdrew him last fall when he had only completed the 9th grade. That was about the same time he moved out of his mother's house and began living with his grandmother just blocks from the elementary school. Months before the shooting, Ramos began contacting acquaintances with vague but ominous messages about doing something soon. In March 2022, 2 months before the shooting, a student on Instagram told him that people at school talk crap about, I'm sure that's the word that was there, about you and call you school shooter. The next month, Ramos asked in a direct message on Instagram, "Are you still going to remember me in 50 something days?" After the answer, "Probably not," Ramos replied, all right, we'll see in May. Crystal Phelps, who attended school with Ramos, told the Associated Press he was frequently angry and gave off vibes like he could shoot up the place, though it was taken more as a joke than serious. I always heard this saying that says, follow your first mind. If you meet someone and you get a weird vibe off of them, go with that weird vibe. If you're going to do something and something tells you don't do it, don't do it. Ever notice how a lot of times when something goes wrong, your first thought is, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have said that. Something told me not to go over there. Follow your first mind. Ramos took jobs at 2 fast food restaurants and saved money for what he told acquaintances was something big. So now we know how he got the money, which family members assumed was his own apartment or car. Instead, it was guns and bullets, which he tried to get 2 people to buy for him when he was 17 and unable to obtain legally. But on May 16th, the gunman turned 18 and began purchasing firearms and ammunition, persuading an uncle to drive him to a gun store. He eventually spent more than $5,000 on 2 AR-style rifles, ammunition, and other gear. And with no criminal history or even arrest, Ramos passed all background checks. He had earlier written online 10 more days, eliciting speculation from readers that he was planning to shoot up a school or something, or commit mass murder. A friend told him that an acquaintance was telling everyone you shooting up the school. One second. All right, I thought one of the babies was coming in. Hey, PJ. He also spent time playing the children's video game Roblox with his cousin's son, a student at the Robb Elementary, and elicited from him details about his schedule and how lunch periods worked at the school. I got a little secret, Ramos wrote on Snapchat to a German teenager he had befriended days before the May 24th shooting, adding that first he was waiting for something being delivered on Monday. His order of 1,740 hollow point bullets. 1,740 hollow point bullets that expand in bodies upon impact, more easily killing, arrived later that day. Sorry about the background noise. Oh, you going to bed, Sleuth? Have a good rest. Shortly before entering Robb Elementary, wait a minute, I skipped something. None of his online behavior was ever reported to law enforcement, the report said. And if it was reported by other users to any social media platform, it does not appear that actions were taken to restrict his access or to report him to the authorities as a threat. Shortly before entering Robb Elementary, the gunman reached out to the German teenager he had befriended earlier, posting a message that he had just shot his grandmother in the face and was about to, quote, shoot up, unquote, an elementary school. Not sure he was serious, the German teenager replied, cool. I'm going to have to get out of here for a little while, but I'm still going to come back later. After the G babies have laid down, we're going to do some missing persons. And then tomorrow or the day after, well, not Sunday, either Saturday or Monday, we're going to start breaking down that Texas House of Representatives Uvalde school shooting report. As a matter of fact, I want to start us on that on Monday so that we have the whole week to go through it because it is rather long. And I'm not about to sit there and try to read through 77 plus pages because there's actually more than 77 pages of actual text. So Monday evening, we will start reading through the Uvalde school shooting Texas House interim report. thanks for joining me tonight. Guys, I only need 16 more subs to get my community wall. I don't know where the new subs came from, but thank you all for being here. Hey, Tim, I just saw you up there. Um, thank you all for joining, for subscribing to the channel. I hope that you would, well, I hate to use the word enjoy in this genre, but I hope my channel meets your expectations and that I am bringing consistent quality and informative material to the table. Still, bear with me just a few more weeks. We got some upgrades coming that are going to be very, very nice, including possibly a green screen. I've got some people that are in the family that are kind of supporting a little bit more now. They see that I just keep doing this and that it's something that I, prefer doing. Again, I hate saying enjoy because it's not really an enjoyment to talk about all these horrible things that happen to these kids, but it's a sense of purpose. So good night, y'all. I will see y'all probably around 10 or 11 Central Time with some more crime news and missing persons headlines. Thanks for joining. Love you all. Bye.